Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us for today's very special episode of Recruit Military Live in partnership with Flowers Foods, where we will be highlighting our amazing military spouses and discussing various tools, tips, and tactics for your next big career move. And just in time for our Military Spouse Virtual Career Fair happening next month. And what a great way to ring in the upcoming Military Spouse Appreciation Day. As a reminder, please feel free to drop any relevant questions or comments you may have during today's episode, or just let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you. As always, my name is Gabby Petticrew, and I am joined by my wonderful co-host, Raul Torres. How's it going your way, Raul?
Hey, Gabby, how you doing? I'm doing great over here. Had a little bit of rain this morning, enjoying it before it gets to 104-degree weather here in Texas. How's
Yeah,
Arizona?
Arizona's we already hit 101 this year, so breaking the triple digits, gotta love it. But thankfully it was a great Easter weekend for us. The nice and sunny but not too warm. The chocolate didn't melt immediately, and the eggs that were hidden outside, so we're good. But I'm absolutely excited for today's episode.
Hey, yeah, I'm excited too. When I learned of like the topic, I immediately thought back of like my transition and then my wife's transition, like during the pandemic. So I'm excited to welcome our guest today. He's a senior career coach with the Spouse Education and Career Opportunities Program, SECO. He's been with the SECO program for 3 years and thoroughly appreciates the privilege of serving military spouses as they strive to achieve their professional and educational goals. Prior to his work with MilSpouses, he worked for 20 years in career services at the college level. He has a master's in counseling and is a certified workforce development professional. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in welcoming Michael Cronk. Michael, welcome.
Much for having me, Gabby and Raul. It's great to join you all. I've over the 3 years I've been with SECO, I've had the opportunity to work with Recruit Military a number of times, and I always appreciate the great work you all do and that we all collaborate on together to serve the military community.
No, thank you so much for joining us today, Michael. We're super excited to, first of all, highlight our military spouses, our background heroes. They do so much for the military community, for their service members. And, I think sometimes they're not aware of the bountiful amount of resources that they have available to them. So if you'd like to kick it off, just give us a little bit of your background and what it is you do in your role at SECO.
Absolutely, appreciate that. So yeah, I've been a career coach for my entire professional life, as Raul talked about. But over the last 3 years, I started exclusively working with military spouses through the SECO program. Again, the Spouse Education and Career Opportunities Program. Hopefully our military spouses out there have heard of us, but if you haven't, we are a program underneath the larger Military One Source support program. So hopefully all of you in the military community are well acquainted with Military One Source. But the SECO program specifically is designed to help you, our military spouses, with your education and professional goals. So we provide a range of free services to help you, whether it might be pursuing education. We have a grant called the MyCCA, My Career Advancement Account Scholarship, that awards up to $4,000 to help you pursue a licensure, certification training, or to assist you with an associate degree program. We provide free coaching services through our career coaching packages. Again, free and unlimited to help you with your individual education and career goals. We offer a range of tools through our website to help you with resumes and interviews and access to all sorts of support resources. So we exist to help you, and that's what we're all called to do. We all have a background, extensive background in career coaching. Many of us, I'm an exception, but many of us do come out of the military background. We have a lot of military spouses who are coaches, a lot of veterans, etc. So lots of institutional knowledge on military life and lots of institutional knowledge on the career coaching process.
No, that's phenomenal. And I love that you guys do have such a range and diverse selection of team members within your organization, because you have not only the civilian sector in that perspective, but also individuals with military background, which is perfect for that transitioning military spouse. trying to get a good career under their belt with all these moves, these constant changes, right? And, let's just jump right into our first talking point, which is resume writing. So whether they've, haven't had a career in a few years or never had one because they've just strictly been focused on raising a family, or they're just too busy handling the million and one things that they're doing. How can a military spouse get a jump on creating, updating that resume? What are the things that they should be focusing on?
Absolutely. Well, the most important thing is to recognize still the value of a well-developed and tailored resume. My mentor used to say you couldn't study abroad in college unless you had a passport. You can't job search without an effective resume. And an effective resume starts with first understanding what it is you have to offer. And when I say that, what I mean is most people think of a resume as a job history. Here's everything I did in that last job and the 3 other jobs before that. Instead, though, a resume is about what you have to offer, because while a resume is about you, it's for that recruiter. You're sending it to them to show what you can bring to that job. And so to kind of continue that idea, then it's incumbent upon you as the applicant, that job seeker, to create a resume that is tuned to that particular job. We're not going to send out a generic resume to every job, because then you're forcing that recruiter to say, well, does this help me or not? Instead, if you are tailoring that resume, you're telling the recruiter, I understand what your needs are, and I've created a document to help specifically show that I can meet those needs. And that's especially important today because of the widespread use of applicant tracking software. This is software that you may all have heard about, AI, these software programs that are scanning those resumes before a human ever looks at them. And they're looking for the keywords from their job posting. And so if you don't take the time to tailor that resume and put those keywords in there, your resume could very well be screened out, even if you are the most qualified candidate. So some of the things that we will help you do as career coaches is help you fine tune that resume, not only to create a starting resume, or what I like to call a general resume that has all your experience, but then teaching you how to tailor a copy of that resume to each of those individual opportunities.
Absolutely. And I love what you said. It's something that I hadn't really thought of in that perspective, is that while creating and building your resume is about you and advocating for yourself, it's also for the recruiter. It's from their perspective. So while you're creating this whole sheet about your accomplishments and your careers and your experiences, having to step outside of yourself and look at it from the perspective of that recruiter for that specific position, and what is it that would be most impactful to them to see on that paper. And I absolutely think that that's a game-changing perspective.
It's absolutely essential. And one of the phrases that I like to use is, it's something else we think about with the job search process, is we as applicants have to empathize with that company, with that recruiter, putting ourselves into their shoes. We want them to understand what we can do and understand our life situation. And of course, as military spouses, the ups and downs and the transitions that we've already referred to, we want that recruiter to empathize with those experiences, but we have to first empathize with their needs to show we can bring something of value to them before they then are willing to, take a deeper look and understanding of what our needs are as applicants.
Yeah, that's a very good point, where we have to kind of translate into the recruiter's terms. But something that, at least here at RecruitMilitary, we do have the advantage of when we host our job fairs, is that a lot of the recruiters are, veterans themselves, the ones that show up to our events. So that conversation kind of goes a lot smoother, even if your terms aren't all, translated into civilian terms. But speaking about, you already have your resume done, and now, one of the best ways to find employment is a job fair. And for the listeners on LinkedIn right now, you probably have seen Veronica's post about our upcoming job fair. Michael, I just wanted to get your take on, like, you have your resume done, and now you're doing research on the job fair. What tips would you have for military spouses transitioning or not, looking ahead to a job fair? Like, what would you recommend that they do to get ready?
Great question, Raul. Thanks for asking. There's two things to think about, and everything I'm about to say parallels both the traditional job search and specifically the hiring fair. So when I say this, it's important to think about this is a microcosm of that larger job search. You first have to understand yourself and what it is you're actually offering and looking for. So again, that does start with that well-developed resume, but then focusing in on the type of roles that you feel you're most marketable for. Then let's just say finance as an example. So you're looking for finance type of roles. Well, then when you're participating in or getting ready for this recruitment fair, you want to look at the employers who are hiring for those type of roles. Okay. And recognizing also that finance is important in lots of different industries. So it could be a healthcare organization, even if you are not interested in clinical patient work.
Mhm.
So part of the way to prepare for a career fair is to go to that site and look at the employers who are participating ahead of time. I actually just had a conversation about this earlier this morning with a spouse who's participating in an upcoming MSEP job fair. That's the Military Spouse Employment Partnership on April 30th. Shameless plug for that you can learn about on the SECO website. This is the time of year for recruiting fairs. So whether it's the SECO program or with the upcoming RecruitMilitary event, researching those employers ahead of time. What are their needs? What are they recruiting for? And taking notes on those recruiters. And let's say, for example, we have 50 employers taking part. You are not going to have the time to visit and talk with 50 different recruiters, whether it's a virtual event or in some of the in-person events that happen, a lot of installations. You're just not going to have that kind of time. So you're doing the filtering ahead of time to identify the ones that you are most interested in speaking to. You're taking notes on what it is about their organization that you're attracted to, and what are the specific roles that you've identified that they're posting for that you're interested in. You do that work ahead of time so you can then plan your event out before you even show up to it. Okay. That's major step one, is doing that research. Step two is to then prepare and understand the specific logistics of that event. So the RecruitMilitary event is going to use a particular platform and have a particular setup. An MSEP event might have a different way. Understanding what are the logistics of that event. And I will say RecruitMilitary does have some great links on their website. And I see Veronica chiming in, some great links and some information on how to prepare for events. So take advantage of whatever event you're participating in. Use their links, look at their literature on preparing for the event, learn logistics. So you're not walking into this event and signing in kind of, what's going on. You're prepared and ready.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that we're speaking on the research process of this, because, we've even hosted employers who attend our military community job fairs and career fairs. And the number one thing that they mention that could be a detractor is, a military service member spouse coming in and kind of having no plan at all, having done no research. It could be not the best battle plan to have. So doing your research, knowing who it is that you align with, what organizations seem like a good fit for you, knowing what their core values are, what their mission statement is, and seeing what positions they have available, having that plan and knowing who you want to speak with first and foremost is absolutely like one of the greatest things that you could do. And what would you say to any attendees when it comes to creating? I know it's something that we touched on prior to this call. You're not gonna be able, unless you did go through the trouble, which would be amazing, to create specific resumes for every single position, for every single employer that you went to. Is it okay to create kind of a more general resume for the job fair, seeing that you're going to be speaking and shaking hands with so many organizations?
Absolutely. That's a great question, and a great piece of advice is have what I like to call your fair resume, your tailored resume for the fair. If you plan to talk to 10 different organizations, but your focus is on, let's say it's going to be marketing jobs that you're focusing on this time. Well, you can probably put together a marketing focused resume. But because you're talking to different employers, you're not going to necessarily know ahead of time exactly which keywords that company's using. And so you're not going to want to spend the time talking about putting together 10 different resumes for that fair. you can have a marketing focused resume. But then when you do follow up after the fair and you actually apply to a job, say on that company website, that's when you're going to go through and do that further tailoring and putting in those keywords that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, and going one step back, Michael, when you were talking about not knowing what opportunities come with each employer, one of the big examples I do when I'm boots on the ground at our job fairs, at the very beginning of the event, right before we kick off, we kind of speak to the job seekers that are present to kick off the event. And an example that I use is, hey, TSA at a previous event was hosting or was hiring for nurses. How many of you are looking for nursing positions here today? I'll get a few hands up. How many of you would have walked right past TSA, at this event? Same hands go up, right? And that just goes to speak to the research that, could have prevented that. So absolutely great points on doing your due diligence before showing up.
Absolutely. So, for sure. That spouse that I met with this morning, this upcoming MSEP virtual hiring event that I mentioned, it happens to be focused on healthcare occupations. But a lot of these recruiters are going to be larger healthcare providers that are going to be hiring folks who do customer experience support and things like that, which is what my particular spouse I was talking to is in. She doesn't have any clinical experience, but she wouldn't necessarily need that for many of the jobs that they could be hiring for when otherwise we're thinking about the nurses and the LPNs like you talked about.
Absolutely. And Michael, what are for those military spouses that maybe just need to get their toes wet and kind of are looking at the research aspect and being like, whoa, where do I start? What are some good ways, specifically, like, let's say for our upcoming military spouse virtual career fair, what would be some tactics and methods to first even start with researching?
Absolutely. So number one, again, is to identify who all is attending the fair ahead of time, right? And then visiting their company website, what is special about them, and just getting a sense of, and these are things that we would want to do as applicants anyways, right? When we're applying for a job, but specifically for that is you're putting together some ideas about who they are, why I'm attracted to them as an organization, and then identifying what are some of the opportunities that I am drawn to. And also maybe recognizing that maybe today they're focusing on hiring nurses, but they are a large healthcare provider, so they might have customer service experiences that they may not be focusing on hiring for today, but I could bend their ear during that event to say, hey, I know I didn't see them on your website today, but you also tend to hire patient experience folks or whatever, because I am interested in that type of work and interested in applying my experience to a healthcare organization. So this is where that dialogue comes into play. And it also leads into a really important element of preparing for and effectively conducting your time at a career fair, which is the elevator pitch.
Yes.
And if you have not thought about or recognized what an elevator pitch is, it's your introduction to that recruiter, whether it's in person or in a virtual breakout session, if it's a virtual event. An elevator pitch is simply you introducing yourself to that recruiter and then making some sort of connection about what you want to bring to them based upon the research that you and the notes that you took earlier. So as an example, I might say to a recruiter, hi, my name is Michael Cronk. I just recently graduated with a bachelor's degree in biology, and I'm really excited about venturing into a lab tech role. In the future, I'm looking at graduate school, but right now I really want to get my feet wet applying the skills that I learned in my labs. I saw on your website that you were actually recruiting for junior lab tech folks, and I really want to talk with you today about how my skills and recent internship with a local graduate program really dovetails nicely with the research that you all are doing in this or that medical thing that I'm not even going to try to pretend to ad lib at the moment. But the idea, though, is that I first introduced myself, gave a very brief background, but then I quickly connected it to the organization and the role that I identified ahead of time that I wanted to connect with them about. And that gives them the opportunity. Number one, like you said earlier, Gabby, it shows them that I researched them. It shows them I walked into this event prepared and I have a goal in mind. And that's just going to naturally raise my standing with them as they then return the conversation, and frankly, provide their own elevator pitch back to me.
No, that alone, just in that elevator pitch, not only are you describing yourself, your experience, and wrapping it all up in a bow, but you're showing that employer the initiative that you have, how well prepared you can be, all of these amazing attributes before they even have that full conversation, before they even look at your resume, right? Like, wow, this person really took the time. They're obviously interested in us. And that little bit can go a very long way. And also, I don't think we covered this, but one important thing is when you are crafting and building that elevator pitch is practice, right? And I learned this
Absolutely.
phrase where it's like I stopped saying practice makes perfect and I started saying practice makes permanent for my violin teacher in 5th grade. Shout out Mr. Green, because you could be practicing something incorrectly, right? Whether it's a sport, whatever it is. So find a buddy, whether it's your spouse, whether it's a friend, whomever it may be, and practice saying it to them, getting it to roll off the tongue eloquently so that when you are in front of that hiring, that recruiter, that manager, whoever it is, it's just natural to you. And also you have someone else listening to you being like, maybe replace that word with this, or maybe add this tidbit or add this why here. But no, that's exactly it. I think the importance of having that elevator, speech is maybe not something also that people think about. They are like, okay, I look great. I'm showing up on set my alarm. My resume is built like where I have the people that I want to speak to, but you didn't really craft this 30-second or under little paragraph about yourself. So sometimes that can come out as alphabet soup when you're in front of
Absolutely.
someone, right? So the importance of an elevator pitch cannot be understated.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you talked about practice. I'm going to steal that. Practice makes permanent. I'm going to absolutely steal that and start using that
That's
with my
right.
spouses. But as career coaches, we absolutely can practice those with you. That's what we do daily during our sessions, whether it's preparing for an interview, whether it's doing that elevator pitch and talking about networking either during a fair or otherwise. We will absolutely help you with that elevator pitch. The other thing I recommend, kind of a tip, is we did talk about earlier, identifying those top organizations that you want to talk with. Let's say out of 30 employers, there's 6 that you really want to focus your time on, but maybe there's, 6 or, a couple more that if you have time. What I recommend is kind of prioritize your list. And let's say, here's my top 5. Start with number 6, join their breakout section and go to that table first.
Mm-hmm.
Do your elevator pitch, break the ice, get your nerves out of the way, have that conversation. And that way, if it maybe wasn't as well done as you thought it was, that's okay. They weren't your top employer anyways. But you get your
Exactly.
feet wet, you got an idea of what you need to say and how you want to do it. Then you go hit up the ones that you're really focused on.
Yeah, that's a great tip. That's something that I always recommend job seekers do. Just get the nerves out of the way with someone
Absolutely.
who might not be, who might not have opportunities for you, but at least you're, like you said, getting your feet wet. And man, first impressions aren't everything, but first impressions are everything.
They can make a
So
difference.
yeah, they can for sure make a difference. And just practicing to make permanent, Gabby, like you were saying, it just changes everything for you. You walk in with a different kind of swagger. You're confident now walking into, booth to booth, and it just changes how you feel. So definitely prepare with your elevator pitch before coming in.
Absolutely. And, you talked earlier, of course, about dressing up for an event. If it's in person, of course, you've got to dress up fully. But I always tell people too, if this is a virtual event, dress up fully, wear the slacks, wear the skirt, wear the shoes, because mentally it is helping you prepare and put yourself into that frame of mind. If you're wearing a shirt and tie and shorts, right? What are you
God
really doing,
forbid,
right?
the Amazon guy won't stop docking or your dog is losing its mind in the background and you have to get up and dart off screen really quick.
Exactly right. So there's the obvious of that, but just
Guilty.
mentally, it is preparing you. And then on the flip side, one thing I want to make sure we add is in terms of kind of tips for recruitment event, hiring event, is take notes on the conversation that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Take notes on what
Good
their
point.
instructions are to you. They may say to you, hey, have you applied for this job yet? You may say, no, I wanted a chance to talk with you first so I can get some insights to be able to work on my application. Great. I'm going to ask you to work on that application, send it in, and then maybe follow up with me and let me know what your application number was, or just let me know that you applied. Take notes on those conversations because you do want to plan to follow up with these recruiters. You're going to want to send a follow-up thank you note within 24
Mm-hmm.
hours of that event to the ones that you focused on and really hit it off with. Also, they're going to be talking with a lot of spouses, and many events encompass veterans, veteran spouses, current military spouses, the gamut of folks. They're not going to remember you, but they might remember that conversation. I told the spouse this morning that I was working with, she happened to have been a 911 dispatcher for a number of years. That's a unique role that they may not remember her name, but they'll remember talking to that 911 dispatcher. And so she could reference that in the follow-up email. I wanted to remind you, I was the spouse who was a 911 dispatcher, and you really asked some great questions about that. They'll remember that connection. And that's something that you can leverage to help build that relationship going forward, not just through the application cycle, but ongoing networking with those different recruiters.
No, that's like absolutely amazing tidbits that I wouldn't even, you're so caught up in the process of having these conversations. Yes, you get a contact card, a point of contact, but taking notes on each employer, be like, oh, I thought this was my number one, but I actually really aligned with my number three. So yes, the power of note taking. And so during this live today, I mean, we've covered a multitude of great topics, from resume writing to researching your employers and everyone in attendance to a job fair, and then crafting that elevator pitch. Now, there is an upcoming opportunity for you to actually utilize all these amazing tools, and that is our military spouse virtual career fair happening next month, May 6th, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. And you're not going to want to miss this opportunity. I think we have over 30 employers in attendance. And the last time I think I checked this morning, 210 registered attendees already. So boost those numbers. We want to see you there. And Raul, what else do we have in session for that day?
Yeah, as a bonus, I mean, we're going to have professional development sessions, I believe hosted by Mike Cronk himself. They're going to be from 10 a.m., starting at 10 a.m. and then the next one at 1 p.m. And that's going to be inside of the virtual career fair platform you're already in. So make sure you don't miss that either. Mike, if you want to elaborate on those specific sessions, like what topics are you going to be covering?
Absolutely. So we're going to be talking about and focusing on overcoming barriers, which, as Gabby mentioned early in the program, of course, as spouses, you have barriers, you have obstacles to employment. Of course, there could be gaps in your experience. One of the things I mentioned to them before this call was that gaps in employment is not the same thing as gaps in experience. You have been busy and been involved in engaging and learning skills, even if you weren't in an employment situation. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those experiences and how you can discuss those with these recruiters, incorporate them into your resumes and cover letters so that you are giving the full picture of what it is you have to offer.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. No, this is going to be an amazing event from start to finish. So make sure you show up early for that 10 a.m. session with Michael to discuss these amazing topics more in detail. And if you missed that 10 a.m., join the job fair, get in there, speak to employers. And then if you have the time, there's another session at 1 p.m. if you missed the 10 a.m. So Michael, thank you again for joining us today. We absolutely appreciate everything that you and SECO and the MSET program are doing to support our military spouses. And any last parting words of wisdom that you may have for our amazing military spouses?
Just please absolutely reach out to us, myseco.militaryonesource.mil, or call the Military One Source hotline, 800-967-3. I knew as soon as I started saying I was going to mess up the number. Knew as soon as I said it, you'd think I'd have it memorized, and I do. We'll put it in. I appreciate
that. That's why I have coffee.
So please do call us. Free sessions. We're here to help you.
And then on that note, also, any resources, numbers, links that may be relevant to today's RM Live will be dropped in the comments and will be pinned to the top. So everything that you need will be very easy to find and right at your fingertips. Michael, thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you,
Michael. Good luck to all
Michael.
of your spouses. Good luck with the job search and with the events.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
we'll see
your
you guys
time.
May 6th. And thank you for everyone for joining us on today's episode of Recruit Military Live, and we will see you next time.